Hello, this is the Inside Liverpool Sport podcast, episode 1. I'm joined by Tom Morley, George Martin, Kieran Hamilton, Stephen Hidley and Marty McKelwey. My name is Sam Milne. To start off with, we're just going to talk a little bit about the football this weekend. Everton drew 1-1 with Burnley and Liverpool beat Wolves 4-0 last night, with fans returning to Anfield for the first time since pre-coronavirus days. So, George, how did you feel about the win last night? It was unexpected 4-0, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think people were expecting Wolves to have a bit more, because especially with them being such an attacking threat, having Adama Traore on Nico Williams, and he picked up a yellow card after 3 minutes. So I think they were trying to exploit that, try and get us down to 10 men. But I think without Jimenez, they didn't really have that focal point, Wolves. So I think they struggled. Because they had Pedence and players like that, like the trickery players, but they didn't have that number 9 as the focal point up top.
Yeah, we saw them try to put quite a lot of crosses into the box. I know, Stephen, you're red. How was it last night? Do you think that the defenders were sort of buoyed on a bit by the supporters being back in the stadium? Because since the stadiums have been empty, Liverpool's defensive record hasn't been great.
Yeah, I think the fans were brilliant, and I think the players appreciated it and shown their appreciation for it. There was talk about Kelleher being in goal. Was it just a one-off game against Ajax? But honestly, you feel so comfortable with Alisson in goal. You don't really get sketchy. With Adrian, you kind of do. But Kelleher's came in and he's been brilliant. And whenever the ball's coming inside the box now, not really too fussed. I think Kelleher's got it. Matip being injury free as well. I think brilliant. He's one of the best defenders when he's fully fit. And I think what's been going unnoticed is how good Fabinho is. Not actually a centre half, but came in from centre defensive mid into the centre half position, and you couldn't tell the difference. Being fantastic.
Do you think it was the right decision to not buy a new centre back in the summer then after selling Lovren?
Whether it was the right or wrong decision, I think you can't really predict your main man Van Dijk to pick up an injury. Like, it was a freak injury, and then there's an injury concern over Matip all the time, isn't he? Like, he doesn't take much for him to be injured, but I think we always knew Fabinho could fill in a centre half, and no one predicted him to get injured either, really. So I think if he bought a centre half in the summer, could have been spending his days on the bench. But
Yeah, I personally think we didn't buy one, just because for the quality that obviously Liverpool are at the minute, you wouldn't have been getting a very good defender for such a little price. You would have had to been paying big money, and you couldn't be guaranteeing them a start, because if you look at our defensive record pre-lockdown, when we had the fans in, it was unbelievable.
And Kieran, with Fabinho moving back into centre back, it does leave us a man short in midfield, especially with Thiago, Keita, Shaqiri, Oxlade-Chamberlain all getting injured quite frequently. How do you think Curtis Jones has stepped up to the plate? Do you think he can be an option long term, or do you think he's just a filler until we get our starting 11 back?
Well, we've got a lot of depth in our squad as a whole. The midfield, especially, it's very, very packed with talent, and I do think Curtis took a big step in the right direction if he wants to continue playing first team football, and he's done quite well where he's at to, really, in such a hard situation. So I do believe he's definitely got a chance and can be in a long-term option for our midfield. But with the quality we have got, it's not certain, really. I think it's just going to be a really good competition, and I don't know. It could go anyway, really. But I'm just very happy that we've got such a good quality in the squad that can take the step forward like Curtis has, really.
Yeah, so a great win for Liverpool. Obviously, there's two big teams on Merseyside. And although we haven't got any Blues on the podcast today, we're still going to have to talk about them. So, Marty, Everton drew 1-1 against Burnley at the weekend. They've trailed off a bit recently. Why do you think that is?
I think there is that people found him out. They thought James came in but a bright spark, and his creativity is like unbelievable in his left foot. But people seem to sort of get the plan and sort of countered it as well. And the back, they've been sloppy as the back is sometimes as well, and it's predictable at times in the midfield. But Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's a bright spark, unbelievable, and he's a bags man. Like, he's unbelievable up front.
Yeah, and Tom, you're a Leeds fan. I think maybe people at the start of the season expected Leeds to be maybe on Everton's level this season, because there was a lot of talk about Bielsa coming in and being, almost like the chosen one for Leeds, and will lead them back to the top half of the Premier League. Obviously, the start of the season, Everton started really well, and so did Leeds, but they haven't quite had the same results since. Do you think that the lack of squad depth is an issue for both sides, Leeds and Everton?
I mean, obviously, last season for Leeds, for example, you're playing 46 games in a season. This season, you're playing 38. I think there's a lot of talk about squad depth and such, but in terms of obviously, like now it's hard for most teams, obviously, with a packed schedule. Like, there's more players picking up injuries. Like say, you've got Van Dijk, Gomez, Henderson has been doing this season as well for Liverpool. So I think squad depth this year is more key than it has been before. Like, it is. I hate this term, but it's just at the minute the times are just so unprecedented. So, but I think for both Leeds and Everton, like, obviously squad depth is going to be an issue. But I think in terms of the players that both teams have available as well is not helping. Like, obviously, Tom Davis at the minute has been getting a lot of stick. Iwobi's been getting a lot of stick. Are these players who can really, really push on for Everton? That's my big question, really. I don't think they are.
Well, how I look at it is, I think they have a very good starting 11. For example, I think the same starting 11 must have started the first few games for Everton and didn't look out of place with the new players like Alan, James Rodriguez, Calvert-Lewin. That starting 11. But as soon as one injury goes, it's kind of like the team doesn't know what to do. Like, they haven't got the same connection. So, like, I don't know if it's Ancelotti making a bit bad decision, but they signed this new left back from Marseille, and Digne's got injured, and then they're playing Delph left wing back. So I don't know if he trusts some of the players or he only trusts the starting 11.
Hey, Kieran, I've got a question for you now here. I'm going to put you on the spot a bit. James Rodriguez looks a bit like a Coutinho kind of player. Obviously, and when Coutinho played for Liverpool, it looked like he was doing things on his own at times. If you were Carlo Ancelotti, who would you sign in January to complement the front three if one of them got injured? Put you on the spot.
That's really on the spot, isn't it? I mean, you look at Everton, they're not going to be able to sign, huge, massive players. It's kind of a tough one, that.
We'll leave you with that and come back to you in a bit.
I've got one.
Go on, Tom.
It's like a pacey winger. If you look at their wide players, there's no pace. I think you play like Amber.
That's what I'm trying to think about. No, a fast winger.
Not a skill there, no pace, yeah.
And the wing backs are injured too, aren't they?
Coleman's out, yeah, and Digna's out.
Yeah, Mine or Rashika for me.
Okay.
I think Bamba from
Bamba.
That's a good start.
He's a really good start this season, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we've had a bit of a chat about football. Kieran, you can come back to us if you want. But in elite sport as well, for a Merseyside-born person, we've got Callum Smith fighting Canelo next weekend. I'm going to hand over to Stephen to talk about this a bit with George, and anyone can put their input in if they want.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't actually follow boxing, just Callum Smith, Liverpoolian, grew up, got three brothers, they're all boxers. Liam, former world champion, Callum, now current world champion. And Callum doesn't fight as much as people would want to see him fight, just because he's such a big draw, and he's like one of the toughest opponents you can get in the middleweight or super middleweight division. Whereas Canelo, he just picks his opponents well and beats them with ease, really. But apart from Golovkin, but I think now there's the fight we've all been waiting for. Callum Smith versus Canelo, December 19th. And I honestly think if anyone's to beat Canelo now, it is Callum Smith. He's got the size advantage. He's one of the biggest super middleweights. How he makes super middleweight, I'll never know. He's too big.
Yeah,
And
see,
yeah,
it's probably Smith's biggest fight as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
People, especially in Liverpool, have been saying, "Oh, when's he going to get this big fight? When's he going to get this big fight?" He's always been not ducking and diving, but he's just never been the main card type thing, where he's the main man. And obviously against Canelo, he's got his chance to definitely do that.
Well, his last fight, he fought John Ryder, and he didn't look like a world champion in that fight, really. After beating George Groves, everyone thought, oh, he's going to go on and progress even more. And then he fought John Ryder, and people think he was lucky to get the win in that fight. But I personally had him up, but it's all about opinions. And anyone who thinks he'll fight like that against Canelo, he said it himself, he will lose that fight if he fights like he did against John Ryder.
Yeah.
But if the best Callum Smith shows up, he's got the biggest chance in that division to beat Canelo.
Yeah, he's probably the biggest other name after Canelo in that weight to have a good chance of being the best.
we'll just move on to another fighting sport just briefly. Kieran's got some news on TNT wrestling in the city.
Yeah, so for the 2020, a lot of events have been cancelled obviously due to COVID, and so they've recently announced, it was just 17 hours ago on Twitter, that they now put all their events up for the 2021 year, and I think the first is January 31st, which is huge news, especially for the talent who works for the promotion, as they've recently been unable to perform anywhere else really due to being signed to their promotion, and also not being able to travel where they really need to. So it's a big piece of news for wrestling.
And obviously the gyms and the closure of gyms and boxing clubs, fight clubs, will have had a massive impact on wrestlers, boxers, MMA fighters, of which there's a lot from this city. George recently spoke to Owen Quirk about the closure of gyms and the effect on them, and also he spoke to student psychologist Patrick Kirby,
yeah,
about how mental health can be affected by the closure of gyms and places for exercise. Tyson Fury, someone who spoke about mental health in the past. Just how important did you get the feeling mental health was in regards to exercise from your chat with this student psychologist?
he kind of spoke about how important it is not just to be doing like exercise, even just a daily walk, even just getting out and making sure you're not sat in the house. But especially when like professional stars such as like Tyson Fury, and I think we spoke about Ben Chilwell because he's recently come out and spoke about his mental health. And he was saying, "Oh, would Chilwell being a defender seen as being like a hard man?" It shows that there is another side to it, and everyone can suffer with mental health. So he kind of spoke about it to encourage for me as an individual, and for him and other people, that we all need to do the tiniest bit of exercise at minimum.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously the closure of the gyms hasn't helped that at all. But what the closure of the gyms did do was send people outside in the summer, in the lockdown. And I spoke to Councillor James Roberts about cycling in the city. He's the chair of the Active Travel Forum and takes the lead on trying to get people out on the roads and out of cars as well. And he was saying the pop-up cycle lanes in the city are set to stay, in theory. I know this affects quite a lot of people. Stephen, how were you out on the bike in the summer? Because the poll we conducted on Twitter suggested people on Merseyside were getting out and about biking and running more.
Yeah, I weren't biking, but I was running. You gotta, with the gyms being closed, everyone doesn't want to be stuck indoors, and obviously you weren't allowed to go out and meet up with friends. Nowhere open at all, anywhere to socialise. So to just get out and get a few miles in the legs and try and stay fit. So when gyms do reopen and you are allowed to go places, you're not completely unfit. And I just think it's good for mental health as well, as you touched on there before. Just running, like taking an hour at the most out your day to just a bit of exercise, just free the mind really. It's really useful in terms of just like forgetting about whatever going on in your life at the minute and just
So when I spoke to Patrick Kirby, he kind of spoke about it's an escape. That's what he kept repeating. For some people, it's an escape, and it wasn't even necessarily doing sports. He even spoke about watching sports. So he was saying how important in lockdown the football was, even if it was just watching it on the telly. So now with fans being able, 2,000 fans being able to return, them 2,000 fans, you don't know, one of them could be suffering with mental health, and that could seriously help them just by going the match for 90 minutes.
I think the big thing is as well, like obviously it's such a new thing is mental health that we're all still learning about. And I think the virus spell hasn't helped. Like obviously in August and September there was more suicide deaths than what was COVID deaths. So I think it's shown the importance of exercise and shown the importance of gyms, obviously, because like healthy mind like is such a key thing. It's something that everyone aspires to have. I think without gyms, like it's harder for people to be able to achieve that.
I do think the government had a massive decision really, like recently with introducing more lockdowns and early lockdowns, closure of gyms. I feel like they had like an ultimatum. It's like lockdown where you shut gyms, and then you gotta keep gyms open. People were saying the closure of gyms will kill more people than coronavirus, which, as Tom just said there, mental health we're still learning about, and the government they're just trying their best to cater for everyone. But I do think gyms are one of the most important things to keep open.
I know, Kieran, you're a gym goer. In the summer, how did you adapt? What did you do? Did you go outside and go cycling or running? What were you up to?
Well, I put on a fair bit of weight. That's one thing.
Which is another thing that doesn't help people's mental health as well.
Oh yeah, like body image and you don't feel great. It happened to me the first few months. I was motivated. I was alright. I've got to stay up. I've got to keep up with me. Physical fitness. Doing home workouts and running and just whatever I could do to try and keep myself in shape. But then you start to just realise that it's not the same. It's just, do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel as good as looking forward to going to the gym every day and getting in there, just having an hour or two to yourself, nothing else really mattering. So obviously after a while, myself anyway, I kind of just started laying off it, and it made me go into a bit more of like I don't want to say depressed state, but it made me just be like low energy, not really bothered. So it's so important that we have them open. We really, really do need them to try and stay open if possible, because it really does help, and it really does help the mindset of everyone who goes. It's a big thing, especially for me.
Yeah, and going from gyms starting to reopen now, although we don't know for how long, given how busy it was in town on Saturday at the weekend. Horse racing's starting to come back now, and we had the first meet at Aintree this weekend since coronavirus hit, I believe. And Marty can tell us a bit about that.
Aintree picked off from Haydock. Haydock started on Wednesday, and Aintree welcomed 2,000 there on Saturday, including the owners, obviously. It's good to see them back in, especially because we missed the National this year, which is the massive occasion. Like, everyone watches the National. My grandparents would watch it. Anybody, I have no clue about horses, but they watch it. The main event was the amateur chase. It was the final race of the day, and there was 40 grand prize pool for the winner. It was amateur jockeys, amateur trainers running a lap of the Grand National Fences, which is good to see the actual fences this year instead of missing them. Outsider Blue Bell, 20-1, won the last race for Dr. Tom Newland. And Dr. Newland famously won the Grand National in 2014 with Pinot de Rigue. So he's definitely got a lot of experience around the entry. And for 20-1 winner, it's right to him to get a chance at, the big prize pool. And our races and the Beechers Handicap, which is run around the national fences as well by actual, not amateur jockeys, but professional jockeys. And the Brule won that there. The Brule, sorry, the favourite, 5-1, get beaten that by Violin Rouge, 20-1 as well. So a lot of upsets, but it's good to see the fans back. And obviously there's no alcohol being served and stuff like that, but it's progress, and hopefully we can move on and get the national in April.
Yeah, it must be so good. It must be so good for like amateur jockeys to be racing on the actual Aintree race course.
Yeah, it must be. It's some experience. I was chatting about. I have a friend back home, not over in Liverpool, back home that rides amateur, and that's everybody's dream. National's the dream. Like, that's the goal.
Yeah.
It's fences 6 foot, 7 foot high. You're jumping over that. There, it's taller than most men. Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, so that was the amateur racing at Aintree this weekend. And on to more amateur sport. The Northern Premier League in non-league football and also the North West Counties League have announced that they are going to further postpone their league season until at least December the 16th, but in reality it's probably going to be January before they start playing league fixtures again. So this includes Marine, who have been in the spotlight recently. It includes most non-league teams on Merseyside except Southport, who are in the National League North. So, Stephen, what's your opinion on this? Because I know for junior clubs, the reason has been that coaches and players don't want to have to self-isolate over Christmas if they get corona. But it's interesting to see that the adult football's been cancelled as well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, obviously Marine are still playing in, the FA Cup and FA Trophy game, which they've got coming up. But I think the adults, if they get in, they pass it on to, their household. They could live with elderly or the kids and don't want to pass it on. I think it's another one of those. It's a tough position to make, but I think they're just looking out for everyone's safety, and if it's kind of like a unanimous decision to all just come together and just postpone it or just cancel it altogether, I think they've made a hard decision, but I think it probably is the right one. I also read Marine put a statement out saying this week's FA Cup trophy game, FA Trophy, is if you buy tickets for that, then it doesn't count for the Tottenham game in the FA Cup third round, which I know everyone's going to be eager to go and watch. But yeah, so I think you were saying, I think they must have had high demand for this FA Trophy one because people thought they were basically guaranteed for the Tottenham game.
Yes, and that's something that Marine have been quite quick to say, because usually in the build-up to these big cup clashes, especially if you draw a team like Spurs for 8th Division Marine, it doesn't just help them financially in terms of getting gate revenue for that match. It means that people start going to games building up to the big cup game because they want to build credit so they can secure a ticket for the game against like the elite team. And the financial implications for Marine of getting to the next round, the third round of the FA Cup and playing Spurs, they'll probably be on telly. But it's something that not every league team has had. Skelmersdale United have talked about how they're only just staying afloat. And we're going to go to George next on this.
Yeah, so it's kind of going to help Marine in a long run, not just financially, but more to the side of the supporters. People from Liverpool might have never heard of Marine because some you don't. You just heard of the big teams like Liverpool, Everton. So for people from around that area, or even from anywhere in Liverpool, might see Marine on coming up against Tottenham Hotspur from the Premier League and think, I want to attend more of their games. If they're unable to attend Anfield or Goodison, because we know how hard it can be to get tickets for Premier League games, they might go. It might encourage people to go and watch their local side more, and encourage like younger people to go and watch Marine, and hopefully, and I seen Marine put out today that they do for in year 11 in school, so about age 15, 16, they do some trials. That could encourage like kids who've been dropped from academies, still wanting to play football, and hopefully get into it semi-professionally. And it shows that even if you are semi-professional, you can still play against big clubs.
Yeah, well, there's numerous stories out there of players dropping down from academies and not knowing what to do with themselves, and Marine could be an outlet for them because football's so important for so many people and sport in general. So we'll end there this week. Thanks for listening, everyone, and join us again soon.